It's the Morning Star Drive 117.8. You soaring up with sky, now's the time, don't delay. I'm sitting in my ride and it's time to fly. So let's realign, just listen and fill your mind.
Hey guys, how is it going? And welcome to the Morning Star Drive on 117.8. It is Tuesday, March 19th, and so happy for you joining us. We are ready to start another day together with the Lord. So subscribe to us on YouTube, follow us on SoundCloud, and make sure to support us on Patreon. So today we have an exciting podcast for you. We have Provi in the media, the practical word study, and of course commentaries, updates, and news on what is happening around the world in this history today. All right, everyone, how are you doing? And yes, it is Tuesday. It's already Tuesday, guys. I felt like the weekend just slowed everything down because we had 316 celebration on Saturday, then the Sunday service, and then of course, Monday is always a slow day, but for me, it was like such a long weekend, but I can't believe we're already at Tuesday. Just really happy to see you guys once again. Q&A Thursday is happening in a couple days, so get those questions ready. Send them to me whenever you can. And if you haven't yet, leave a like and comment for today's video. Let's build our community. Just super happy for everyone joining us every weekday on the Morning Star Drive. So let's get up and support each other each and every day. This week's Sunday message title is, I Will Resolve It, the work that God must do and the work that human beings must do. All right? So like I said, it's Tuesday. And man, that weekend was like, I didn't realize how long the weekend was until it's Monday. Ugh. I'm even yawning right now. Like it was a really long weekend because even for me, like I told you guys on Friday I recorded like 3 different videos for the new Rebel Pastor channel. As you guys can see, it's getting super busy on that channel too with all these YouTube shorts and clips and this podcast that's going on there too. So yeah, I am exhausted. I am really, really exhausted. Yeah. And I think part of it is because I told you yesterday, like playing with children for a couple of hours. And these are not like babies, because babies, they just sit there like, and that's all they do, right? You just got to hold them. But when it's like kids like 4 or 5, it's like questions every 3 seconds. They want to say something to you. They want to put something in your mouth, right? And you just expend a ton of energy. And then right after I play with the kids, I recorded my podcast. And right after my podcast, I went to play volleyball. And after volleyball, I went to, what did I do? I set up the studio because I am recording today. And then and even after I set up the studio, like pretty late at night, like 8:30 p.m., I went to go meet a friend of mine. So it was just like so busy. Monday morning, just exhausted. I'm not sure if because it's almost like an extra service because we had 316, but my body is feeling it right now, right? And like I said, for me, life is getting more busier because I am doing now I'm back to doing 2 YouTube channels. And I feel, at this moment, I feel a little bit tapped out in the mental area. Like, I have to constantly think about content and stuff. So even, like, I'm going to be honest with you guys, today, I didn't even want to do this podcast. I was sitting like going, what am I going to talk about? You know how you just lie in bed and you start to get into a little bit of like not negativity, but just like, I don't want to do this. And your mind starts to convince you why you shouldn't do it. Like, it's okay. You don't have to do it. You don't have to do it, right? And, it was quite funny just lying in bed talking to myself about not doing today's podcast. And I'm sure all of us have had those days, not wanting to go to work, not wanting to go to school, don't want to take the test or the exam, whatever it is, right? And but we know one thing for certain in life is we've just had this experience so many times. All it is our body adjusting, right? We just need to keep on doing it a little longer, and then it gets much easier. You get used to it, and it's not as hard or bad as we think, right? So Yeah, I was complaining a bit this morning. I'm just like, God, please let something happen, right? So that I don't have to do this. But I'm just like, yeah, stop being a baby. Stop being a baby and just get up and do it. So Even right now, I'm doing it at a pretty early time. So, yeah. When you think about 316, one of the big things that I liked about 316, it talks about how we can, how we reach newer levels, and it's not something that is so like reaching a new level is not like, oh, I feel different. Oh, all of a sudden I know more about the Bible. All of a sudden I feel something more. Oh, all of a sudden, like, it's not none of those things, right? You see, it's none of those things, and it's sometimes like when it comes to reaching a new level of rapture, it's not about the feeling. Like, life, even today, life is the same and it continues in these routines we have every single day. And sometimes when the routine doesn't change for a long time, it just feels like nothing has changed, even though we've grown, even though we've gotten better at certain things too. So like even me, I don't feel any massive changes in my life or something is really different because of the 316 day. But I also know that the change in level is not something so visible or something that is felt all the time because it's a spiritual thing, right? Remember, rapture is a spiritual thing. So, like remember back in 316, like 2015, those guys were there. Even when we were doing the big rapture event, like the 316 event, our spirits on that day were taken to the golden city, right? Together with the Holy Son. But how many people actually felt it or how many people actually saw it? It was so few people that saw spirits go into the sky. So few people that felt this like, oh, my spirit's leaving my body. Like almost no one felt anything at that time. It was something that was completely spiritual, and we did need those people who were very, very spiritual or who had their spiritual eyes open to see those things for us so that we knew something was going on. Right? So, what we need to do is we got to trust in God. Like knowing that when God says something happened, we raised our level, whatever it is, we can at least trust in what God says. Right? Reaching a new level should result eventually in new thoughts and new action. I think the new thoughts what I felt was like a revival of 316 this year. Like, oh, I really felt it again. Like this is such an important day, an important time because of what happened last year. So, no matter how small the changes or the thoughts or the actions may be, there's going to be change. And some of it just takes some time to come into fruition because it's a spiritual thing. Like I would say the biggest change in my life at this moment right now is starting the Rebel Pastor channel. Right? It's all brand new. And the amount of effort and energy put in is like what I've put in already over the last 4 or 5 days is a lot since Tuesday. So it's been like 1 week. So much energy has been put in and I just need to keep it going. That's it. Just keep it going. Right? Today, I'm going to go to church after this recording and I am going to be recording some new videos and stuff like that too for the channel. Oh, and remember, just a gentle reminder for everyone out there, this week the time is going to change to American time, American Canadian time, North American time, right? So remember, it'll be Tuesday evening in America and Canada, 6 p.m. Pacific, 9 p.m. Eastern. Okay, just remember that. I would love for those of you out there in Canada and America to help support the live broadcast. So it'll be a premiere this week. And just, I really, really hope that we can kind of get this get this type of podcast and this information out so more people would understand the word more deeply, which means this week for those of us in Asia, which I'm in right now, it's going to be Wednesday, 9 a.m. Malaysia, 10 a.m. Korea. Remember, Wednesday morning. So it's Tuesday evening for America and Canada, and it's Wednesday morning for Asia, which is 9 a.m. Malaysia, 10 a.m. Korea, Wednesday for like Asia and like the oceanic countries and stuff like that too. So I hope that we can get a lot of support from the US and Canada, EU, other Western countries. Or, if you guys are available at 9 a.m. over here, 9 a.m. Malaysia or 10 a.m. in Korea, just put it on your phone. Just let it run so that it'll show that more people are watching the live stream. And then on top of that, it'd be great because we'll be able to, as we beat the algorithm and get more and more people on it, like, put a comment here and there, or in the chat room or the live chat room or whatever it is. And I hope it's something that you guys will really, really enjoy. So, this week I will resolve it. This title here, I love this title. I really do. When I think about this title, I will resolve it. This is like God's promise to us. It may not be this week, it may not be this month, but God is going to resolve it. And it makes me so hopeful. It makes me hopeful about the future, what's going to happen with all these trials and situations. And, even I think God is going to resolve problems inside the church. God is going to resolve the problems in our countries with evangelism and all these are different things. God is going to resolve these matters, right? One of the things I really want to see in my lifetime is the explosion of growth of providence. Us reaching not just 100, but 200, 500, 1 million in my lifetime, just to be wow, it's happening. I can see it with my own eyes, right? It's almost like Simeon and Anna, the prophetess, who were promised by God that they would see the Messiah with their own eyes before they died. That must have been such a fulfilling moment for them. And that is going to be one of the most fulfilling moments for me too. Just going, yeah, I can't wait for that time to happen. I really, really can't. So, yeah, it's very hopeful. I will resolve it. It's not just what God is thinking, is God's promise to us. Lately, because, we just had 316. And on Sunday, watching these videos, the 316 videos, the live broadcasts, plus listening to the message on Sunday, one of the things that it just made me start to reminisce about the last 1.5 years. And, I think for me, it was the first time, maybe, is it the first time? But I guess it just feels this way, true tribulation. I've been in Providence 26 years. I felt nothing like what happened last year. And especially being in a foreign country, we're so far away from Korea that when things happen, you don't feel it as much. You really, really don't. So it's in 1999, that was the grave period, right? Persecution hit Korea. Grave period began. And I was in America at that time. I couldn't really feel it. I couldn't even understand it. I was like, oh, there's persecution. But I wasn't in Korea, so I don't see what's happening. I don't understand what's going on. I was still a newcomer at that time, too. I had no idea how bad the situation was. And it was just way too far away. And, sometimes I do feel guilty not being able to feel like God's Shimjung or Sunsim's Shimjung. What's he going through? Because being in a foreign country, it makes it a little bit more difficult to really experience that type of situation. And I think 2023 is the first time you kind of really get hit oh, this is tribulation. Oh, this is real persecution, because we had real persecution and slanders in the foreign countries. Like I told you before, it started in the foreign countries, in America, right? And it's all people we know, people we're close to, right? And in the past, being in a foreign country, it was like a buffer zone. The difficulty wasn't as bad, plus the churches were too small, right? And I would say that the only Western country that could really feel tribulation was probably Australia, because of the slander that was going on over there, and you had Peter Daly and stuff like that too, right? But most of the other foreign countries, I think it wasn't so bad. I'm not sure. You guys can write a comment on this if this was the same for you guys too. But I was in America and Canada, and you can't really feel it. It's just hard because you're not in the thick of things. You don't experience, you don't know the culture, you don't know what's going on, you don't know what people are saying, and it's not in your face every day kind of thing, right? But I didn't ever think that, before in the past, when Sun seems like, oh, there's tribulation, there's this, it's really difficult. And I was like, it's not that difficult. I didn't really feel it. So even for me, I was more like, no, it's not that difficult. And on top of that, I wasn't only just saying it wasn't that difficult. Like you look at that and say, well, there's really, nothing's that bad kind of thing. You know what I mean? Like I really felt that tribulations, nothing. I can handle it. Look at me. Like, oh, we're going through this difficult time in Providence and I'm handling it okay. I never thought there could be a tribulation that could be that, that could shake Providence that badly. And what we went through last year, it was true spiritual war. It was real spiritual war. Some got hurt, some got traumatized, some died. And to look back with, now that I have a little bit more clear mentality and after going through 316, I cannot deny how much God was with us last year and how much God truly helped us through that crazy storm. I look at ourselves, you know what I see? I think we are the true, I don't know what the right word is. We are the true spiritual war generation. I really think so. We are a spiritual war generation. And we're going to become that strong generation that pulls through, that becomes a foundation for the next people that come that never face this, right? I think that when you look at the war generations, like those veterans that came out of World War I, World War II, they were strong. Their mindsets were powerful. They've seen the worst of the worst, and they did it for the sake of their countries, for the entire world, for peace to come, right? And I also think that we are the generation that's going to be the ones that testify and show the next generation how to really do it. I really feel that. When I watched the 316 broadcast, when I was watching it, I really felt like, man, 316, this is how it's supposed to feel. And this is what we need to give that feeling, that atmosphere for the future generations to say, wow, this is what happened in 2015. This is how important that day is. They should know, the future generations that never went through this should know how amazing, how great 316 is, and that it should be commemorated for the next, 1,000 years. Everyone should rejoice. Everyone should be glad, right? Give thanks for that special, there's so many things I look at and say, yeah, this is our responsibility. We may not be the generation that makes Providence explode. We may not be that generation where it's going to be like, oh, wow, we really did it. We may not be that generation, but we will be the generation that went through all the worst and the craziest times. And we've got to be the ones that show the next generation, you guys are blessed. Let's do better. You guys are so blessed. Let's do better. This is what happened back then, right? This generation that we're living in right now that just went through 2023, we're going to be looked upon, and we're going to be the ones that we need to make history together with the next generation that comes in, right? Don't quit. Don't rest too long. We have history to make for the sake of God and all of our descendants in the future, right? Think about it. In the future, when everything just everything settles down, where God resolves everything, when everything turns out well, when Providence explodes, when just everything's working out so well, when God finally resolves all these things, this is when we're going to look back at this time and we're going to say, wow, it was truly worth it, right? That's the time we can really say, it's very hard to look at ourselves right now at this moment and say, oh, it was worth it kind of thing, right? Because, we're kind of just coming out of the cave, right? We're like the scared turtle that's kind of coming out of our shell after what happened last year. But later in the future, when everything begins to work out, what's going to happen? We're going to be like, it was worth it. Wow, we really made it through. We overcame. And we can say in front of anyone that no matter how difficult it gets, you gotta overcome. We can truly say that to people, right? Once we get over this, once everything gets back to normal, once we restore, once we reach that new higher level, we are going to become literal living testimonies of overcome no matter how difficult it was. That's what we're going to become. Like, even me, I was telling you before, I was waking up like, oh, I want a break. I don't want to do this today kind of thing, right? I thought of taking like a huge break. Just stop everything, go relax, go on vacation, whatever it was. But then I also realized, I'm like, but Sky, you're kind of relaxing too much anyways. Like you're traveling, meeting people, drinking coffee, eating good food. And then I realized that God really took care of me during this time, during last year and such. And here I am thinking to myself, I want a break. I really, really want a break kind of thing, right? And I'm just kind of like, it was kind of funny to me to look at myself that way. Right? Like I said, even today, maybe I shouldn't do my podcast today. Just take a real break, right? And it's so funny because at the moment, I realize that at the moment, I think something that's comfortable, that allows me not to work, not to suffer, my mind just so easily justifies it. And I think that's something that all of us can do really well. So it was just like, it was so interesting just to... I was just really getting inspired and getting a lot of energy, realizing that we are this generation that's going to be that generation that is a living testimony to do things until the end, to overcome no matter how difficult it gets. And we can be living testimonies because we went through the most difficult time ever in Providence history. There will never be a time more difficult than that, where we're going to have a war that's going to be bigger than that also, right? So I would say, everyone, take heart, be strong. We are that generation, right? We are that generation, and we're going to do better. We're going to be greater too, right? So I hope that we can just really change our hearts, our thoughts, our mindsets, our mentalities, and realize once again, we are the blessed generation. We really are. We are the blessed generation. So I thought to myself, is like, wow, so many things that we can do, so many things that we can think about, and I hope it's something that we will realize the blessing that we're receiving from this time right now, right? So, I'm just really happy and thankful what God has done too. Now, Q&A Thursday. Q&A Thursday is in a couple days. Please get those questions in. I think after going through 316 together, probably brought in a lot of questions too. And of course, the Sunday message telling us that God will resolve it. I will talk about a little bit more in the practical word study too. All right. So that's just a couple of things I really wanted to talk about. I hope it's something that opens your hearts and your minds a little bit more too. If you have any comments or anything, just leave it below. Would love to hear what you guys are thinking about also. All right. So before we get into today's practical word study, let's get into the first break of the day. right, so let's get into today's practical word study. We do this every single Tuesday. Hope you guys are really going to enjoy this. A lot of different things to think about for the practical word study. I don't have anything like super long or anything else along that line, but I do have 2 suggestions in order for us to put the words of God into action for this week. Now, the first one I think is probably, I kind of hinted at this at the end of the first segment, but in the message, Sunsteam talked about the kinds of problems that we have, right? Like we go through, like there's so many different problems that we go through life. And if we don't get those problems resolved, then it becomes more difficult, right? It becomes something like, oh, it's so hard, it's so difficult kind of thing, right? And you will suffer and you will not, as long as you don't resolve this problem, you're going to suffer and go through more heartache. And if it's that important, I think we do need to resolve these problems. We really need to do it. Of course, there were answers, more generalized answers of repent, love, find the work in each area. But I think that one of the first things we should do is to think about the different type of questions that we struggle with or we're uncertain about. Like the things that are going to that could affect us later in the future. Like, what are the things that you are uncertain of or wish to know more deeply about? Right? Like, even when I do lecture training these days with one campus member, and the cool part is when they hear something about a lecture, and it finally clicks or it's in there, like, oh, I get it now. Like, that is such a powerful moment for people, when they finally understood the word a little bit more deeply than they did in the past. I'm not saying it doesn't have anything to do with, oh, they had bad lectures in the past. It had nothing to do with that. Why? Because when you're young and listen to the word for the first time, it's not like you get everything. All you need is the basics. It's got nothing to do with you had a bad lecture or not. It's just that as you grow, you begin to realize more. And as you realize more things begin to click. And I would say, especially if you're going to be a lecturer, you got to know these concepts, these principles in such a way that you're inspired by them and you can inspire others to do the same, right? So I would say, what are the things that you are uncertain of? What are the things you wish to know more deeply? What do you want to realize even more at this time? Write down the thoughts in your head. What are the things that give you doubts? What are the problems that you face right now, right? Because Sunsteam said there's like multiple areas of it, right? You're going to have the issues you deal with, which are personal, right? Your personal life, or it could be about your faith. It could be about the word. It could be about the Bible. It could be about questions about God or Jesus, Son's name, Holy Spirit. Like there's so many different things that they're not at the moment, I would say, they're not like deal breakers. They're not the things like, oh, if I don't get this answer, I'm not like, I'm leaving. I know a lot of people have questions, but they're not things that are what you call deal breakers. But it's possible in the future that they could become deal breakers, especially if you begin to experience certain things in life that are not that great, like terrible things in life that make you rethink and make you understand, oh, God, what does that mean? Oh, what does this mean? God, why did you say this? Or God, why did you say that? Or God, why don't you do this? Like, remember, one of the things that Sunsteam said is a lot of times people leave because why? They leave Providence because they feel left out. They're the ones suffering and struggling, and the wicked people are the ones that are thriving, making money, doing this and that. And we're like, God, why am I suffering when I'm the righteous? And there are going to be misunderstandings. There are going to be things we look at and say, oh, this doesn't make any sense. And when you go through that difficulty, you might complain or grumble, or you might not understand it well enough that those things that are unresolved in your heart, if they don't get answered, it could become it could become a reason why we leave or why we, stop believing. So I do think it's very important that even if it's not so important right now, get them answered. Remember, God says He will resolve it. This is a promise. It is not a statement. It is an absolute promise, right? And He wants those questions to be answered. Some of those, you're going to get answers from the word on Sunday. Some of them you'll get it from a proverb. Some of these answers you're going to get from people. Some of these answers you get from the Bible. Some of the, you're going to get these answers from multiple different areas. And even for me, I'm giving you the Q&A section every Thursday, and I want to help you guys out on the ones that I can help you with. And that's why, write those questions down. Send them to me, right? I'll probably be better at helping with questions that have to do with the word or the Bible, right? Or certain concepts of providence, like spiritual concepts and such. But yeah, send those questions, because I think that's the way we're going to help each other. This is where we're going to resolve the things that we couldn't figure out in the past also. So it is something I do hope that one of the big things that we can do is really, really begin to help each other, right? Let's help each other the best that we can. Let's help each other where, sometimes I don't have an answer, but I'll call Pastor David Baker. I'll call Pastor David. He'll be like, oh yeah, I heard this too. Oh, good job here. And we're just giving and taking inspirations, information, realizations, wisdom to and from each other. And that's the way it should be. That's like a true relationship, right? And I hope that, as we ask our pastors, ask our head leaders, ask, about these answers to some questions that we don't know, this is something that we really, really have to think about very clearly, right? And, I hope that, that this can be one of the times that right now, if we write down all these questions or these thoughts, the good thing is going to be that we're going to start praying about them. And we're going to actually start to try to figure out we're going to try to figure out these answers, whether it means studying about it or it means asking other people about it too, like leaders and myself and other people like that also. So I really hope that this can be something very, very practical that will help us in the future. Go ahead, guys, write those questions down, send them to me, send them to your pastors, send them to your the people that you know, because there are answers out there. A lot of the things that we think about, the answers are already out there. Okay? The second thing that I would say to make the word more practical this week, I think one of the concepts that we always that sometimes we forget a lot is understanding clearly about the concept of sorry, I just yawned. the limitations of the Holy Trinity. Right? And of course, this does not mean that they cannot do it. But they are limited to when it comes to things that belong to us, right? So God, being a fair God, being a loving God, so a loving God means he gives us choice. A loving God means that he wants us to voluntarily love him with all our heart, soul, mind, and strength. But being the fair God is, remember, people get according to what they've done. What does that mean? It means that you can't get salvation if you don't want it, if you don't deserve it, right? They're not going to go past their limitations, right, of what is the right thing to do, right? Saying things about God like, oh, God can't do, we're not saying God can't do it. God does not have limitations, but God is someone, right, who is fair. He is principled. He is someone that does things the right way, right? It's not about getting the most. It's not about doing what you want. It's about doing things the right way. And that's the most important part. And it's not right for them to touch our free will. It's not right for them to give us something that we don't deserve, which most importantly is salvation, that's spiritual salvation. They did everything in their power. Send the Messiah. Give us the word. Train that body, the body, the man of mission, whatever it is, right? They've done everything in their power. Only thing that's left is, what are we going to do with what we want? What's the next step for us is, what are we going to do about it, right? God is not going to help in that area. Right? One of the things I think that Sanseep said in the past, Sanseep said this was his philosophy. His philosophy is, God is not going to help me with anything. That's his philosophy. Right? And that's why he did so much action. Because if you think about it, the moment you rely on someone is the moment you stop fully doing your responsibility, because you might think to yourself, oh, they will definitely do it. They will help me out. Oh, they're going to help me out for sure. And this is when people get caught. They get caught not getting things done because They thought someone else would do it for them, right? We need to understand, like the message said, your heart has power, authority, it has sovereignty. That it can even stop your own salvation even though God wants it and even though God helps you with everything that He can. Think about it. We have the power to stop God's will. And I would say in some cases, at a smaller level, we do stop God's will. We stop God's will from happening because we don't do our responsibility, and God has to do a second attempt, right? We learned that in the conflict and ignorance lecture, where it's the first attempt where it's Egypt's going to save Assyria, and then they're going to work together with Israel. But instead, Josiah does a conflict in ignorance and stops Egypt. Like when you really think about it, it's like, oh, that's kind of crazy, right? But we have to realize in some cases we delay God's will. In some cases we stop God's will. We have to wait for the second attempt to come. We have that much power, and that's why we have to fulfill our responsibility. We have to do it in the right way. We have to get that concept in our head so clearly that it's not like I'm just going to pray. And when I pray, God's going to do everything. No, it's going to be I'm going to pray and God's going to help me. When I go into action, when I do this, when I do that, I do everything with all my heart. This is when God's going to help me even more. I think one of the things that we do have to think about is the concept in our head is, are we relying too much on God, right? Just like I kind of talked about this. Remember when I talked about it, what do you call it? I talked about this last year when I said sometimes, like when you look at the amount of pressure that Sunseam and say KJS when she was good, right? The pressure that they went through, but it was almost like we over-relied on them. Like we didn't do much. We waited for them to do everything. We wait for them to pray. We wait for them to set the condition. We wait for them to go evangelize. Like they're doing everything. We put so much burden on those two people that it stopped us from doing what we were supposed to do. Our own responsibility. Like sometimes people go to Holy Spirit movement not even prepared, not praying, not anything else. They just go there to listen and to just kind of experience heaven's responsibility, but then we don't do ours, you know? And that's something I do think that we have to change and switch in our hearts and our minds. Like sometimes, we go back and forth, but we got to change it back again. This is the time right now. We have to bring ourselves to that position. We have to grow. We have to become greater. We have to be those that do our responsibility. Look at your missions, right? Look at your personal responsibility every morning at pre-dawn. Look at your personal responsibilities when it comes to reading the Bible, when it comes to reading the Word, when it comes to going to services. All these things are personal responsibilities that we have to take care of. And if we don't take care of those responsibilities, we saw the final result, which happened to KJS last year, right? We saw the result. That's what can actually happen. Even though you may think to yourself, oh, this would never happen. It can actually happen. And the greatest testament we have is KJS. She is the greatest testament of how, even though we're doing so well right now, if we don't take care of our responsibility, our personal faith, our personal lives, it can bite us later in the future. We got to change, right? We got to change that mentality. What does God want? What can we do for God? These are all different things that we have to fulfill. Put the words into action, making sure that history is made, not from the next generation, but from this generation on, right? Like I said before, we are the war generation. We are the generation that just went through the craziest world war, right? It was the whole world. So many countries were involved in this, right? In the world and inside Providence, we went through a war, inside and outside. So what do we do now, right? We got to do our responsibilities even more. We have to make sure this history runs even better. We have to make sure that this history becomes the greatest it can be by us fulfilling our responsibility. Like Sunseam said, live your life like God is going to help you with nothing. Then you will take action, and then you will do everything that you can, right? So I think like these two things were really, really on my mind when I was thinking about the messages too, and I hope it's something that you guys can really think about also in your everyday lives and what you can do this week. Start writing those questions down. Start changing that mentality of God's going to do it too, I'm going to do it. All right? So yeah, that is today's practical word study. Hope it's something that you guys really enjoyed. If you have any questions or comments, go put them below. If you have any questions for Q&A Thursday, go send them to me too. Okay, so that leads us into, we're going to have Provi in the media, and we're going to go over another CGM video with more details of the Netflix trial, which is I'm really, really looking forward to. And yeah, but first let's get into this second music break of the day.
Take you where you wanna go. You gotta really show him that you want it though. He can show you where you wanna be. You gotta put in words that'll be unseen. Look, and it's just like that. Take it to the golden city just with a snap. You don't even gotta trip, no, we got your back. All you gotta do is sit back and relax. There's this love between you and I that is so strong. I don't wanna ever lose it, then I'll be alone. But if I leave his arms, I wonder. I'll be sitting all alone just to ponder. Make up your mind and act as you should. I'ma show you we can be the greatest duo that ever stood. Living with the Lord every day is like my paradise. If you leave your worries and concerns to him, you'll be alright.
Really wanna live with happiness and hope. You gotta live with the one you love the most. And don't forget that even on darkest roads, just find the Lord and grab your heart. Control your deeds. A pretty paradise right from the start.
Paradise.
All the night brings darkness. You're like the sun, yeah, you always shine so bright. And I can't wait to see you, cause you are my only paradise. Together we're the greatest. Just like the moon and the stars, we light the night. And I can't wait to see you, cause you are my only paradise.
The weather's fine, the temperature's cool. 7 on earth, cause I'm with you. Ain't nothing better when we live forever. When we make us to be one true love. Birds of a feather flock together. And it's just like that. Give you my love, cause I don't hold back. Pour me your love, cause I know you got stacks. This love is real, cause we got it like that. Sandy walks on the beach, summertime. Feel the heat, that's a love paradise. Holding hands, cool breeze, cloud 9. Make heaven together with you and I. Sandy walks on the beach, summertime. Feel the heat, that's a love paradise. Holding hands, cool breeze, cloud 9. Make heaven together with you and I.
I really wanna live with happiness and hope. You gotta live with the one you love the most. And don't forget that even on darkest roads, just find the Lord and grab your heart. Control your deeds. A pretty paradise right from the start.
Paradise.
All the night brings darkness. You're like the sun, yeah, you always shine so bright. And I can't wait to see you, cause you are my only paradise. Together we're the greatest. Just like the moon and the stars, we light the night. And I can't wait to see you, cause you are my only paradise.
He can take you where you wanna go. 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 He can show you what you wanna know. He can show you what you wanna know. I have realized I'm not alone, because living with you is like my paradise.
All the night brings darkness. You're like the sun, yeah, you always shine so bright. And I can't wait to see you, cause you are my only paradise. Together we're the greatest. Just like the moon and the stars, we light the night. And I can't wait to see you, cause you are my only paradise. All the night brings darkness. You're like the sun, yeah, you always shine so bright. And I can't wait to see you, cause you are my only paradise. Together we're the greatest. Just like the moon and the stars, we light the night. And I can't wait to see you, cause you are my only paradise.
Okay, so let's get into our final segment of the day. Wow, that's really amazing. I think it's really amazing right now because, like I said, telling you guys before, I'm just like, man, this morning I was like, oh, I don't want to do this podcast kind of thing. But now that I'm doing it, I can't believe we're already on the last segment. I'm almost done the recording. This is kind of crazy, right? Like, it just shows, like, when you're doing it, God is working with you. And when he's working with you, all these things are possible. They can all happen too. So I'm very, very grateful and very thankful that God is helping me during this difficult time of me being really exhausted and tired. But either way, let's go into Provi in the media. And this new YouTube channel, Fact Checking Q, really, really good channel. It's going over all the details of the American lawsuit, right, with CGM and Netflix. And I'm not sure if other countries really know what's going on with this, but I think it's amazing. I think it's something that is crazy hopeful because it's not in the Korean law court system. I think it's going to be much more fair. I think it's going to be less biased. And like I told you guys before, because it's election year for the president, all the judges that are going to be like swayed are the ones that are working on these political trials. But since this is not a political trial and everyone is focused on like the elections and Donald Trump, this trial is going to be done, I think, in a more fair way. I really feel that. I really feel that that's a blessing in disguise that it's an election year. But either way, so I'm sitting there like going, yeah, I'm really looking forward to it. So let's get into some more of the details, okay? So I did go over some of the details from last week. We're going to go a little bit more, some extra and newer details that came out. And they're going to be a little bit more, much more detailed of what's this lawsuit actually about, okay? So this is obviously, what do you call it? It's about defamation. It's a defamation lawsuit. So the defamatory statements that were made in the Netflix documentary series, we're going to get into some of the things, and we'll get into some of the things that we're saying and the things that we are suing them for, okay? So a couple of things that our statements we made in the lawsuit is that Sunstein did not sexually assault a large number of members, right? Like it says in the series, like it said 10,000, right? Or thousands, whatever. And CGM was not aware of such conduct. So we're saying Sunstein didn't do it. And if there was something that happened, we were not aware of it, right? The second thing that we stated was CGM did not encourage its members to recruit and convert attractive young women for the purpose of, sex, right? CGM never caused it, never condoned it, or facilitated it, right? So you're kind of getting the idea of when we look at the first 3 episodes of Netflix, it's really crazy what they're saying about us. Because the Netflix series not only said that we were going around recruiting people for Sunstein to have sexual relations with, they also said that CGM was the one encouraging everyone to recruit and convert these young women, pretty young women, for that purpose. And then on top of it, it says that we reward members for recruiting or converting young, attractive women. By how? Well, by giving them missions and giving them money. I never got anything like that. I don't know anyone. Like, I was a leader and we never talked anything about this. Right? So it's like, yeah, did CGM reward its members for recruiting or converting young, attractive members? And we're like, you guys, I know what I went through, and even going through all the ranks of leadership, going all the way to Korea, being next to Sunstein, being next to KJS many times, never heard of it, never saw it. You guys, yeah, think about to yourselves. Have you ever felt that this was what we were doing? That CGM is rewarding you for recruiting or converting young, attractive women so that Sunstein can sleep with them? Did you ever feel that? CGM they also stated, we're not aware of any practices, right? And one of the things that was accusing us inside the Netflix documentary is, and what would happen is, like, this is what they said in the documentary series. They said, experienced members who had already slept with Sunstein, they then became the groomers of young members by persuading them to do the same with Sunstein. And then afterwards, reassuring them that it was completely normal. Like they're saying that we like this is the system that we're using. We're so organized. We have those that are, that are experienced who did this with Sunstein are then become the perpetrators, and they're the ones grooming the next generation. And that CGM caused this, condoned it, encouraged it, and facilitated it. And guys, when you hear some of these, like the statements made in the Netflix series, and some of you didn't watch it yet, the more you listen to it, the more ridiculous it becomes, right? We stated the defamatory, this defamation lawsuit began because there's this false portrayal of CGM as a corrupt, immoral, and criminal organization that institutionalized and condoned widespread sexual misconduct. I would say we are so extreme on the other side. Don't you guys think? Like, we're so extreme in, like, girls and guys, sit away from each other. Don't look at each other. Don't touch each other. You can't even shake their hand. It's like, we're so far on the opposite that we even have like a bad look on people who, have that these kind of sexual issues, right? We're so far on the other end that for me, I'm just like, what? Like, how could have they ever been to our church? I think we're a little bit too extreme on one side, right? And what they're basically saying that these statements are so defamatory because looking at the series, like the documentary series, because they didn't have any source, right? They had no sources, no real sources stating that CGM has this moral, wicked behavior, right? Like the series portrays CGM as an organization which basically just provides Sunstein with a constant stream of young women. That's what they're making us look like. So let's get into some of the details, right? So let's get into some of the details, and they're basically going step by step of all the bad things that this lawsuit was stating, right? There's a bunch of stuff. So one of the first ones, they said in the first episode, a woman claimed to have been sexually assaulted by Sunstein, stated that when she left his room after the first assault, she ran into one of the more experienced members who was overseeing things outside, and this experienced member was a link in the chain that brought women to Sunstein and instructed her to not have from now on you cannot have any relations with anyone else. Also in the first episode, Maple claimed she was persuaded by another member named Jay, which we know is KJS, to go sleep in Sunstein's quarters, right? And then she claimed, and when this Maple girl said that, Sunstein assaulted her that night, when Sunstein assaulted her that night, this is what she's claiming. The next day, she went to KJS, and she just reassured her that everything was fine. Right? And Maple stated that KJS left her there for that purpose. And then Maple took on the role of the quote-unquote experienced member and groomed other members. Right? And the series is showing that these women who slept with Sunstein were rewarded with titles and money, eventually becoming pastors. And like this is the one that we talk about is who's your credible source? And the series is using KDH as a witness who stated that one of the biggest goals of evangelism was to bring Sunstein more pretty women. An endless supply of women. Maple said the same thing, right? And yeah, she's the one also said that there's rewards of titles and money. So the series is containing similar allegations. And also if you look in episode 3, there's another former member named Amy, but that's not her real name, from Australia. I think later on when the lawsuit comes out, I think names are okay to talk about too, because it's America. It's not Korea, right? So she alleges that she was assaulted by Sunstein while Maple was present, and then accuses Maple of being an enabler. And then Maple says, "Yes, that is true. I was." Right? There's also other places where Sunstein left Korea. Like, remember, these are all this is what what CGM is saying. The documentary is showing these things to make us look this way, right? Another part in the documentary, it says that after Sunstein left Korea in 2003 and traveled to Hong Kong, China, and other countries, the series alleges that CGM instructed certain young members to go to a CGM studio in Seoul and take videos and pictures in their underwear, naked or touching themselves kind of thing. This is in episode 2. Videos and pictures were sent to Sun Se-min in Hong Kong, who would send for the woman whose tapes he liked so he could sleep with them. That's what they're saying. They can't prove it, but that's what they're putting into this real quote-unquote documentary, which we can call a mockumentary, right? So these statements and what this documentary shows and implies is that they're saying that CGM caused, condoned, encouraged, or facilitated its members to do these types of things, rewarded them for doing these things too. And CGM, we're making our statement, we're making this lawsuit because we do not do that. And even if anything happened, we're not even aware of it. And we're just saying as hey, guess what? Number 1 is Sun Se never did that. Number 2 is, even if anything happened, we're just telling you we have no knowledge of this. So the statements that are made are defamatory. They falsely portray CGM as corrupt, immoral, and a criminal organization that institutionalized and condoned widespread sexual misconduct. And, I'm telling you guys, one of the reasons why it's good to know about these things, and now that things have passed over, now we know how, what's the word? Like in the past, when we didn't know how corrupted KJS got, it was a lot easier to trust her words, right? Because we knew her. She's been, we looked up to her, and she was number 2 in command and stuff like that too. So when she said those things, it did affect a lot of people. But now we're like a year removed. We know the lifestyle she lived. We know the corruption, the way that she was living, all the stuff that came out in her trial, that came out in court documents about the money and all the cars and houses and all these different things. We know all those things are out there, right? Which means, what does that mean? It means that we have to understand clearly, okay, so we were affected before because we didn't know that KJS was like that. But now that we know she's like that, we can't even trust the words that she's saying anyways, right? Which means that, we kind of look at all these, the evidence and the documentary and all the false things about the trial and the audio file, all these things we look at okay, this is ridiculous, right? So this is why it's kind of a lot easier to take in all the different things that the documentary was saying and all the pictures and videos that is easily misunderstood, right? So now that we know about all these other different things happening, it's very, very, we're looking at okay, so this is what they're stating. So this is how they're trying to make us look bad in front of the public, even though they don't have any real evidence, right? Remember, a lot of the evidence they used in the documentary is from past trials, things that didn't go through, things that testimonies that from the 90s and the early 2000s and stuff too, right? So what we need to understand is that even Maple and Amy, right? It's not Amy, obviously, but and what KDH was doing is think about how deceitful they were, that they knowingly put in a false manipulated audio recording, which means that they don't have much. Just the fact that they can knowingly put that in and lie to the court and say, oh, no, I took this from my phone. This is a real audio. That's something we can look at and say, whoa, there's something wrong going on. There's something really wrong going on. And we need to be those that can, be honest and truthful about it. If they're willing to put in false documentation, false evidence to the real court of law just to get someone in jail, I think that's something it's so wicked and evil. But when we look at it truthfully, it's it's time for us to fight back. How do we fight back, guys? We do it through the lawsuit. How do we fight back? We do it through prayers, right? Let's pray for these things happening. Yes, we have less expectation in Korea because the system there is just ridiculous, but I have a little bit more faith in this system that this lawsuit's happening in America, right? So if you have any more questions or anything else that any more knowledge, if any more information comes out, I will be giving you more. I will talk about it more later in the future too. Okay? All right. So there it is, guys. That is Provi in the media. I hope you guys really enjoyed that section. Get to see a little bit more of the lawsuit that we're getting into. That, you know, even though the documentary did say, like, shows, portrays a bunch of stuff in there, like the things I talked about in the YouTube video, but there was no proof that went with it. It's just, and they're saying it's truth, and they're portraying us in that way, and that's why we're saying this is a defamation lawsuit for sure. Okay? So there it is, guys. That is the end of today's Tuesday podcast. Hope you guys really enjoyed it. Have an amazing, awesome, wonderful day. And we'll see you guys again tomorrow on the Morning Star Drive on 117.8.
It's the Morning Star Drive 117.8. You soaring up with sky, now's the time, don't delay. I'm sitting in my ride and it's time to fly. So let's realign, just listen and feel your mind.
I'm burning with desire and the passion. Nobody can stop me when I'm like this. I got my head in the zone, you know. I'm on the Morning Star Drive, you know. I'm burning with desire and the passion. Nobody can stop me when